Long time no see.
Yeah.
Shit, did I fuck it up? Is that working?
Yeah, you're good. Well, I just saw you this morning, but I've been sitting here prepping with the team for a couple of minutes, and you've been in a very different state. I don't know if you've been coming down from the or, but
there it is. There's the journalism. I don't know if you're coming down from, but
well, I just wanted to.
I don't know if you're on. I don't say it. I don't platform it.
That's a fair take, honestly. You know what? Yeah, maybe I misrepresented you.
Look,
I'm willing to admit my mistake
Mr.
on that.
Yassine, listen. When you interview me, it's not you doing it. Someone sent you. My people told me about you. You're kind of connected with more than just hip hop. You don't do politics, but you know politicians. And I don't know what they're saying you're CIA, bro. But I don't believe it because they say that about me. And I said they never let a in this.
So when was the first time you watched Dragon Ball Z?
Dragon Ball?
Yeah.
Oh, we're doomed. 2005, I think. It was a little late to it. I think he came out in the 90s, right? But massive impact on my life. Massive. I'm talking about Vegeta. And growing up, you identify with Gohan. And then you 20 to 24 years old, all the bad stuff happens to you. And then you go, wow, there's never been a more relatable character in fictional history than someone who does everything he can 100% and never, ever hits his goal, is always second place to some fucking liberal bitch.
Yeah, because I think some people find it a bit peculiar that you find a lot of your identity in Vegeta, because a lot of people see you and they think, well, this guy's got all the advantages that Goku has. You know, they're like, he's a good looking guy, no homo. He's a giant. He's a tank. You're relatively smart when you want to be. So what is it that drew you to Vegeta when, in theory, everyone would assume surface level that you have all the advantages Goku has, and you're a bit aloof too, like Goku sometimes?
Well, the way I saw it as an adult was like I'm working security with all these jacked dudes and good-looking guys, and they're getting bitches, and they're beating me on money, bitches, everything. And I was working way harder, more hours, grinding, and just failing. Getting fucking parking tickets, they'll put me in debt. And failing at everything, even driver's license. And like I could drive, but I'd get the shakes. And my brother's like, what the fuck? Or the first year of dating, when I was 20 years old, I tried dating. I tried Tinder. So I gotta learn girls before I worked security or sales. And I had the shakes for a year.
What was your experience with girls before that when you were 20?
Just high school, but like only in school. I wasn't like invited to shit. So I'd see them in school only and then go home and, play professional Maple Story for like 9 hours. My asshole would bleed. I was so constipated. My mom's like, stop playing that game. And out of shape kid.
You played Maple Story? It's like a very...
No, I didn't play it. I made money. I ran the guilds, Vengeance, Synergy, Supervillain, and co-running it means with my best friend. So if I didn't run it, my best friend ran it. And I was the number one player in Scania server. Scania was the beta before there was other servers. And I started a little later than I run. But I ran it with Gavin and some buddies of mine that are hackers. We vac hacked that motherfucker. And we became, close with the FM King, and that's how I learned about. I don't want to hurt your platform, but like that's where I learned about inflation and everything in that video. You know how people learn in World of Warcraft? I learned in Maple. I was the #1 Dragon Knight for the longest time, and this game gave me purpose and meaning to my life. And this game changed me the most. So I was just a teenager, 14 to 17, 18, 8 hours a day of Maple Story, but I'd start in the morning time, wake up early, and get my Hodge Twin videos in. So I'd watch an hour to 2 hours of Hodge Twin every day. And because like people are like, I've never seen something like you on the internet. And I'm like, you don't see the Hodge Twins in me? Like how much they've affected how I think. Like they said on the first date you go with a girl, make sure you grab her close and break the touch barrier and eliminate the friend zone. And then people were like arguing back then. It was like 2011 or some shit. That was great advice. I was too afraid to do it, but they used to give such good dating advice before the statistics guys came out like Myron and them. So yeah, that's the only YouTubers I ever watched is Hodge Twins. And yeah, that's all I did. So very toxic and then Maple.
So you're playing Maple Story, you were watching Dragon Ball Z, you were playing Maple Story a lot. Were you doing any sports at the time?
Well, I was benched a lot. Like I was not good at sports. I've never been like sports, bro, like playing with balls and some shit. But I've never been good with any sport. Even when we're into English Bay basement brawling sparring, I wasn't good at sparring. My buddies were fucking letting me up. But we're doing. I thought I was winning. The only sport I've ever been good at is manipulation, negotiating people out of the bar and into giving me their money out of respect. Like, listen, you fucked up our fucking bartender. You're a big biker dude. You don't do that in my home, blah, blah, blah. But that took years. I wasn't even good at that. It took years to fucking understand, like, that, you run fear into them. So I was good at that and bar fighting. And I don't mean like a big brawl with everyone. So no one's really good at that. Well, I've never lost a one-on-one, and the whole internet is waiting for that day where it's like someone one-on-ones me on the street, and then they think it'll never happen.
So were your grades good in elementary school or primary school?
No, I was almost, I think, failing 5 courses a year. Like I was about to get banned.
So was there any subject?
You could get kicked out from my school for failing that hard. So I'd have to do summer school every single, because I had no interest. And it's weird because if you're failing high school and you're convinced you're stupid, but in the later years in your life, in 24, 25, or like when you grow up, you revisit some topics like history. Young men crave. What happened in the medieval empire, the Ottoman Empire? For some reason, like it's like our immigrant dads. For some reason, they got nothing to do, so they just look at their own history and they go, our people were the first on earth. So all the topics that I failed in high school, when I revisit them without a teacher, no authority, no government telling me to revisit them, straight A's. But there's no one grading me. But I literally, if there's genuine interest, you can absorb it. I don't want to say dopamine and chemicals, but it's like that. So, but yeah, in high school, like all I would think about is gaming. So I was like, never did homework, never went to class. I'd show up for tests just to fail. And I would draw on the back of the test, just like, because I started drawing Dragon Ball characters when I was a kid, and then it evolved from that. And then teachers are like, yo, he's failing every class, but this can sketch. So they put me in a certificate IB genius program. So I'm surrounded by geniuses, but this is kind of like very illegal to do because I didn't qualify. But they gave me a certificate where it's like only for one class, art. And they put me in with geniuses who were like, had art lessons since they were kids, right? And then I smoked those little bitches. Like the first week I did a Mona Lisa sketch, but I used pencil crayons for the palette of the greens, the the fucking kind of amber, the browns and stuff like that. And I was doing it. These guys would take weeks to finish. I would do it in 1 hour because I have ADHD. I was like, gotta do it. If I don't do it in an hour, I was like, start really getting sloppy and shit on all of them. And they all knew that I'm a poor refugee. So they're like, there's no way he's like going to art class and learning how to sketch. Like these guys would draw, let's say they're drawing a jawline stuff. They draw a ball and then they draw a tear going around the ball and then they'd erase the ball. So it adds shape to the face. I'm like, what the fuck? Like they learned how to graph, or I don't know what's that called? Like kind of like a rough draft. Me, I didn't have a teacher, so I had to do it perfect on my first try. But when I learned that it's like, you know, you do 1,000 fucking tries, it comes out better. That's true. But I didn't have the patience for that, and I slaughtered that fucking class. But I sucked at the sculptures and the paintings. I failed all that. Sketching, like number one. And I got in trouble because I would draw a lot. With my Asian best friend, he did that too. And yeah, so the only class I ever got an A in was PE, but after puberty. So when I got stronger and taller in grade 11, 12. PE and art. That's it. Which is kind of like who I am. And one. Like I fail English a lot, but when it was the semester of poetry, I'd go from fail to straight A, whether it's Hamlet, Midsummer Night's Dream, Romeo and Juliet. Yeah. Which is so weird. It's like, my teacher's like, why do you only show up for poetry? I was like, wow.
What drew you to that? Because it seems like you're more so leaning towards like artistic endeavors or had an affinity for it. So was that something that you've always had, or particularly poetry? Because poetry and drawing or sketching are two different things.
I got cocky with poetry because when we had to read Old English, nobody understood it, and we'd have to wait for the teacher to explain what's like betrothed mean and stuff like that. Or nobody understood it, but for me, it was kind of easy. I'm like, I think I know what they're trying to say. Like this bitch is trying to get married and stuff. So the first time I felt cocky that like my first read of the Old English, it sounds to us, but the first read, think about it, failing English and then it switches to poetry and then it's like the first read actually makes sense, but I wasn't accurate. I was like 70% accurate. Everyone else, even the smart kids, were like 10% accurate. They could read all paragraph, they wouldn't know. So they'd have to fucking take notes and break it down. So I was like, yeah. And Shakespeare, like, they talks backwards and stuff like that. And, I don't know, I fucking loved it, dude. What was the first one? It was a comedy. It was a tragic comedy. And then Romeo and Juliet hit me because I was like, I wasn't that interested until the girl beside me, I had a crush on her. She said, you know, John, you know, this is the first time she ever spoke to me longer than 2 seconds. She's like, John, you know, Romeo and Juliet, they fell in love, and the whole thing where they kill themselves and everything, it happens all within 24 hours. And me, I was like this. Imagine if I found a woman that I could do all that, get married and then kill ourselves in 24 hours. And then that's when I was like, the good old days. Like, is that how it used to be? Could you imagine you fucking find a bitch at the bar, within 24 hours you get married? And then people are like, why do you want that? I don't know. It sounds like the greatest thing on earth. Like marrying on instinct. Like the whole not an idiot. She knows. Oh, I want this guy. Which I don't even think even in the old days it was in 24 hours. Like the dad would be like in charge, right?
Yeah, I think
so. I was like obsessed with that Romeo and Juliet shit. Then they showed us like the Leonardo DiCaprio TV show with Tybalt, the Capulets, and the Montagues, and they had fucking gats. And I was like, whoa, this is gang shit. And then, you know, poetry went away and went back to English class, started failing so hard again. I was like, fuck this shit. And then around grade 11, 12, we were doing essay writing, but it turned into creative storytelling. So it wasn't like anything boring or vocabulary. And and then the teacher sent me to the principal's office. I want to call my parents. They're like, you're plagiarizing work, your essays at a college level. Like in grade 11, I was like, what the fuck is this teacher talking about? And then after arguing with them, I said, don't call my parents. Put me in that class and force me to do another one. And all the principal and the other teachers were all like, is this stupid? We got the time to do that. Like, we've been yelling at him for 45 minutes. And they looked at each other smiling like, let's laugh. Like, get in the class and go write it. And they all stood there like Gestapo. What topic do you want? They're like, you're a war child. They said you're a refugee. Why don't I talk about the war? It's kind of like, that's kind of insulting, right? And, and I talked about the war, but I never mentioned any machinery. I never mentioned any guns, nothing. I deleted everything that would say weapons, and I'd trade it for animals, right? And there's like one time it was like the metallic mammoth. And I wouldn't say rolled in like a tank, right? I'd say stomped in like a fucking elephant. And they're fucking like, we even gave him a topic. And I did an even better essay. And they're like, yeah, imagine teachers seeing you fail at everything, even English, but specifically creative writing and storytelling and poetry is the only times the teacher would be like, oh, you're doing good. And oh, you're really good. Yeah. And then he was just puzzled. Like, my teacher's like, whoa, which is weird. It's like, storytelling. Like, that's what life, that's what Dragon Ball, that's what TV, that's every entertainment is storytelling. Right? Have you ever seen Logan Paul try and tell a story? It's the most boring shit in the world. It's like Owen Wilson with. But I remember Logan Paul on Impulsive once said, he's like, storytelling is how you become the best podcast. And I remember thinking that I'm like, dude, I'm instinctively good at storytelling. But if you give me an hour for a script, if James Cameron gave me an hour for a script, right? But I don't like to create from scratch, I can do that. That's just painful for me. I can update. So, for example, you give me Avatar, I can update it and make it better. Let's say the Bible. Why 1,500 emails in a week came into me. Hey, I'm back to being a Christian because you made me turn to Christ. I'm breaking million subscriber channels, Christianity channels that are boring as fuck because I would talk about Goku is the archetype of Christ, the archetype of sacrifice. That's why he's so just sacrifices for everything. And I would link that. And when you link it with masculinity and Dragon Ball, when you interpret the Bible with Dragon Ball references, it's not perverting the Bible because those archetypes of courage and strength and all that, they all come from the fucking Bible. Greed, lust, envy. These are fucking Majin Buu, the androids. Literally, it all comes from the Bible. All of the archetypes. So when you think about it, you're just explaining it to the people who have never had scripture, but they were programmed with TV and Dragon Ball. And then eventually Goku becomes boring to you because you go, Goku doesn't rule the world. Christianity does. So I'm going to go, if you're going to run out of Dragon Ball, you'll never run out of Bible pages. You can study it for 80 years. It's always like this morphing book. But, And all this started when I hired a Photoshop expert and I said, yo, if I'm turning to Christianity, I'm not joining the Christians. They're fucking, they keep painting Jesus feminine and it's a psyop. I know it's a psyop. I know. Do you know how ruthless the fucking 10 Commandments are? Like, the Father is masculine, bro. So I made art of a masculine Jesus. I'll leave it in my room, kind of like a digital painting. And then Christianity became so much easier for me to absorb. Then I started doing research, and it turns out all the old statues were like at the church the Catholic church I go to here. That's got a good statue, by the way, of Jesus. He looks masculine. But then after this Enlightenment thing, they started changing the paintings and the posture, everything about what you're supposed to see. So, yeah.